Hi, welcome. I am Dr. Elaine Stoggeberg, and I am so grateful that you are here. The title of my presentation today is Timeless, the real estate investing principles to guide your journey to financial freedom. You may know me as the owner of Black Swan Real Estate or Single Family at Scale. I am much like you. I am a wife, a mother of 3 children under the age of 5, a psychiatrist. I just finished my residency training not very long ago, and a real estate investor. I have had the good fortune of building a real estate portfolio over the past 10 years that, quite frankly, defies my imagination, defies the goals that I set for myself even a few short years ago. And along the way, I have learned and honed some timeless principles that have guided my decision making, and I'd like to share them with you today. Throughout this presentation, I want you to be thinking about how similar we are, how similar our backgrounds are, our professional backgrounds, likely our families, our hobbies, all of those things. And I want you to see yourself in me. Whether you have no real estate and you're attending this conference to learn about real estate investing, or maybe you have a small amount of real estate and you're thinking about scale, or maybe you already have a lot of real estate and you're thinking about, what is the next level for you, or how far do you want to take this? I want this to be an example of what is possible for you, to see how quickly I was able to grow so that my lessons can teach you how to scale quickly so that you can experience the financial freedom and the other freedoms that come along with that, like time freedom, location freedom, decision freedom, because that's really the point of all of this real estate investing. I also want to take a moment to really honor you, to recognize that you are taking time to participate in this conference. I am so grateful you are specifically taking the time to listen to my presentation. I'm going to do everything I can to make this a very valuable use of your time. And I want to honor that you are taking time out of your very busy day today so that you can build the future of your dreams. And I want to encourage you to keep going. Let's first talk a little bit about my real estate experience. I share this to give you some sense of where I have come up with these timeless principles, of what experience goes into the timeless principles that I'm going to teach today. The picture here is of my husband, Nick, and I, and 2 of our 3 children, and then some stats about my real estate experience over the last several years. So Nick and I co-lead the Black Swan team. That's a real estate sales agency team brokered at Keller Williams. We represent about 98% investors. We do a small amount of real estate transactions for like traditional buyers and sellers, but the extreme majority of our business is for investors. We've done about $35 million in business in the last 12 months. We also co-own Black Swan Living Property Management. When Nick and I started investing, it was important to us that we self-manage. And as we scaled our portfolio, we knew we needed to make the decision that would we hire third-party management so that we could continue to scale, or would we create our own property management company? And for us, we made the decision to create our own property management company so that we could continue to drive control and quality. Today, Black Swan Living manages about $75 million in assets under management, and that number is growing very quickly. We also raise our own capital. So we've raised over 8 figures of capital in the last many years, and we do that through things like private lending and joint venture. All the way through, we've never failed to make an interest payment to our partners, and we've never lost investor capital. We take capital raising very seriously. We know that it's the machine that drives all of the other parts of our business. And it's a part of our business that's very enjoyable, because as we've been able to create this financial freedom for ourselves, we then are looking for ways that we can help others create this financial freedom. And one of the ways that we do that is working with capital partners. Nick and I also have some experience with ground-up development. So we are on phase 2 of a 4-phase, 115-unit townhome development. In total, it will be about a $30 million project. We actually just were able to break ground on phase 2 just earlier this week. You can see my hot pink hard hat over there in the corner. One of the things that I love about ground-up development is that we have the opportunity to take bare land and turn it into something that will live longer than us. So long after we have passed on from this earth, those townhomes will still stand and will still benefit the community and provide housing for families. And then finally, we own Black Swan Real Estate. So that's the holding company that owns the assets that we personally own. We personally own about 25 million in assets. The majority of that is single family. The other is our ownership stakes in large multifamily communities. And I share that number with you to be, again, an example of what is possible. So we've built that portfolio in about 10 years. You'll see how it's really been about 5 years of dedicated work. And you can imagine that it creates, quite a bit of cash flow and wealth generation that we're able to enjoy. And my goal for this presentation is to show you the principles that I have used to create that portfolio so that you can learn from my lessons, so that you can speed up your journey, maybe avoid some of the bumps and bruises that I've had along the way. Let's talk about why we named this presentation Timeless. Humans love timeless things. I'm sure you can all think about a timeless piece of clothing, a timeless fashion item, a timeless piece of art, and how that's so valuable as compared to, whatever's on the clothing racks, this particular fall, but is completely dated in just a year. Think about timeless friendships. So that adult that has had a friend since kindergarten or preschool or maybe even the nursery, that's such a valuable friendship because it's timeless. Timeless assets, that's going to be something I talk a lot about during this presentation. And then finally, timeless wisdom. People are always asking me, well, what's the state of the market, or how are interest rates, or what do you think will happen in the next 3 months? Those things are absolutely important. Throughout the 10 years that I've been investing, we've been changing our strategies or our business plan often as every quarter, depending on what's going on with things like interest rates or whoever could have predicted COVID or an eviction moratorium. So the strategies that we were implementing needed to change so that we could stay a pace ahead of the market. But it's this timeless wisdom that has guided our decisions for the past 10 years, that will guide our decisions for the next 40 years, that allows us to stand steady despite changing winds, whether we're at a low point of the market, a high point of the market, thinking that a crash is coming, wondering if the crash will come. All of those things, this bedrock, this foundation, this timeless set of principles is what guides us no matter what. I want to talk about what this presentation is about and who the ideal listener for this presentation is. So I really think this presentation is for everyone. We're going to talk about single-family homes and how a real estate investor can use the power of single-family home investing to start small, scale infinitely, recycle capital, start to build a portfolio very quickly. We're going to talk about large multifamily. So long-term residential real estate has a lot of the same principles, whether it's single-family homes or large multifamily. We're going to talk about active investors. Maybe some of you listening want to take some of these principles and apply it to your decision making. Maybe you are self-managing your properties, you're working toward your real estate professional status hours. This presentation is for you. This presentation is also for people who choose to do passive investing. Maybe they want to do syndications or funds or other things that don't take as many of your hours. And the principles that I'm teaching you here are things that you can look for in the operators or the general partners that you choose to invest with to help guide you toward finding someone who will make good decisions on your behalf and drive the highest levels of returns in a way that's good for you, for communities, and for the world. I want to talk about finding your why. So any real estate investment presentation would fall flat if it didn't talk about why. So the whole point of real estate investing is to grow wealth and to find freedom. I'm sure you have heard that real estate is the most consistent way to find financial freedom. You've probably also heard the line that more millionaires are made through real estate investing than any other investment vehicle. That's certainly why I started investing in real estate. It's why I encourage others to invest in real estate. It's also important to make sure you're taking time to think about, well, why are you looking for that freedom? And I would say that it's so that we can take back our lives. The moment we are no longer a slave to money is the moment that we have freedom, is the moment that we can live as our authentic selves and be the best versions of ourselves. It's the moment we can show up to the hospital and say, I don't agree with what I'm seeing here, or I don't agree with administration, or I know there's a better way. It's the moment we can say, I don't want to take a call, or I'm not going to let that happen on my watch anymore, or I'm cutting back on my hours, or I'm taking time for a sabbatical, or I'm just going to step back altogether. It's the moment we say, I have this hobby or this charitable interest, and I really want to spend more time and effort on that thing instead of just showing up to work every single day because I feel like I have to as a slave to my paycheck. When more humans are able to do that, I know that the world will be a better place. I know that there is so much greatness in all humans, and that as we can unleash that greatness upon the world will be a better place. You want to spend more time with yourself in exercise, self-care, meditation, journaling, time with your children, time with family members, time with nieces and nephews, time traveling, time enjoying the hard work that you've put into life and benefiting from that instead of just having to show up to work day in and day out. So think about your why. Your why will be what guides you through the inevitable challenges in real estate investing. There are things that you can do to make your real estate investing journey easier, but I promise you there will be bumps and bruises and obstacles along the way. When you know your why, when you see it with crystal clarity, you don't worry about the bumps and bruises. You don't worry about the obstacles. You know that every obstacle makes you stronger, makes you a better real estate investor, gets you closer to your ultimate why. So be thinking about your why, write it down, talk to people, daydream, do whatever it takes to tap into your why and to know that that's the reason why you're choosing to invest in real estate in the first place, so you can get closer to that why. Let's jump into some of these principles. My first principle of real estate investing is start now. There's a saying in real estate that the best time to buy real estate was yesterday or 10 years ago or 100 years ago. The next best time is today. So the pictures you see here are the pictures of a home that I lived in before my husband and I got married. I became what you call an accidental landlord. So we owned this home. It was near the bottom of the crash. It was challenging to sell the home. And we said, you know what? We'll rent it out. I'll be completely transparent saying I was very scared about that. So I was just making the decision to leave my career to go to medical school. My husband and I had just gotten married. I was very worried about what I perceived to be additional risk through having not only the home that we lived in, but also this second home. When I look back, I am so grateful for this experience. I'm so grateful that I was able to experience the cash flow that we were generating from this property. I was able to see the balance of the mortgage go down. I was able to see the value of the home go up as we climbed our way out of the recession. This was in 2011. Start now. People ask, well, is a crash coming? Or what about COVID? Or what about the eviction or the foreclosure moratorium? I can tell you that in the entire time I have been investing, people have been telling me now is not the right time. In 2011, people were saying, I'm not sure that the crash is over. We need to see how things stabilize. Maybe housing will never, increase in value again. Maybe the market is just spooked forever. And then as values went up, people would say, I'm waiting for a crash. A crash must be coming. Now, it's obvious that we are in a high part of the market cycle, and people are still saying things like, I'm waiting for the eviction moratorium to expire or the foreclosure moratorium. I would argue that the best thing to do is to start, to get some experience, to be situationally aware, and to make wise investment decisions. We're going to talk about how to find really high quality assets later in the presentation. But start now. The naysayers will always say that it's a bad time to invest. The people who are really doing real estate, who are really benefiting from the financial benefits and the freedom of real estate, are the people that said, I'm going to start. It doesn't matter if it was 1970 or 2000 or 2020 or 2021. Get started. The first timeless principle is start now. The second principle is start small. So I'll admit I'm even a little bit embarrassed to share these pictures. This is the first home that my husband and I purposefully purchased to invest. So we had the home that we that I lived in prior to when we got married in 2011. I got bit by that real estate bug. I started seeing some of those financial benefits. And then we decided to save up our money to buy a home that we could invest in and we could renovate. This was a $35,000 home in a rough area in Oklahoma City. That's where we lived at the time. I was going to medical school there. We did most of these renovations ourselves. We hired professionals for things like the roof and the plumbing and the heating and air conditioning because we needed experts that could pull permits for that. But anything that we could cover ourselves, we did because we didn't really have enough money to hire a handyman to take care of everything. Start small. We were able to take a $35,000 bucket of money. We put another $15,000 in from our savings account, from credit cards, and also a lot of sweat equity. We then had about $50,000 in this property. We were able to get it appraised for a little under $100,000. We did a cash out refi at an 80% loan to value. We placed a tenant. It was cash flowing. We had our entire bucket of money back, plus some additional money. And is it the sexiest real estate investment we've ever had? Absolutely not. Are there days I think maybe we should sell this thing? Absolutely. I keep coming back to, again, how grateful I am that I had this experience that allowed me to take our first bucket of money and turn it into a house that was cash flowing and then get that bucket of money back. Start small. Your real estate investing does not have to be grand slam after grand slam after grand slam. Of course, get those if you can. Some of that is grace and some of that is hard work and some of that is just being in the market. But good base hits really move you forward as well. The second timeless principle is start small. The third timeless principle is do hard things. So you might be thinking, well, isn't the point of real estate investing that I'm getting back my freedom? I'm getting financial freedom. I'm getting time freedom. Absolutely. I don't want to, diminish that the point of real estate is to get freedom. But if you choose to do the hard things, if you choose to hold high standards for yourself in your investments, I promise you, you will have better returns. You will enjoy the process more. You will get to freedom faster. So, for example, one of the things that I think about is don't just buy any house that comes along. Our team looks at about 1,000 properties per year because we have very strict criteria for properties that we think are excellent properties that will make excellent rental properties that will cash flow, that are in great neighborhoods, that will likely stand the test of time. So the hard thing in that example is looking at a lot of properties, or for you, it might be interviewing a lot of real estate agents so that you can find that diamond in the rough, that person that's willing to work really hard. So your job is to do the interviews, to find the people, to build your team, and then their job is to do the boots on the ground work for you. The more effort you put into building the foundation, again, the principles of your real estate investing journey, the more you will profit, the more fruitful your journey will be. I want to share with you a story about probably the hardest thing that I personally did in our real estate investing journey. So this is a tile floor that's inside of that property that my husband and I renovated in 2014. And we had just found out that we were pregnant with our first baby, and I was very excited. It was something I'd wanted for many years. And I learned while we were renovating this home that I was miscarrying that baby. And my husband would say, do you want to go home? Do you want to rest? What can I do to take care of you? And I said, I want to be here, and I want to be painting these walls and laying this tile floor and renovating this home because I can't control what's happening in my body, but what I can control is my future, and I can control what I do with my time. And I knew that the faster we renovated this property, the faster we could place a tenant who would start paying rent that would give cash flow back. We had spent our entire life savings on this property. The faster we could then refinance that property so that we could get that bucket of money back, so that we could take that bucket of money and buy our next property. So that's an example of how I was able to see the future. I was able to see my why. My why was when I did have children, I wanted to make sure that I could spend time with them, that I could take a day off in the middle of the week to go to their thing at school or at daycare, to travel with them, to be with them when they were feeling sick and needed to stay home, to take long periods of time to travel the world with them. And I could get that by doing the hard thing that day, which was putting my future needs ahead of the emotional and physical suffering that I was having right then, because that why was so crystal clear. It just pulled me toward it like a magnet. That's a very vulnerable example that I share with you about doing hard things. And I look back now at December of 2014, and instead of remembering that as the month that I miscarried our first baby, I remember it as the month that my husband and I put the stake in the ground and said, financial freedom will be ours. We're going to work harder for this than anything we've worked for in our lives. And today we get to enjoy it. So I look back at December of 2014 with joy and victory, and it's not a month of sadness for me. Principle is do hard things. Let's talk about do right things. Or do the right thing, but do right things. So do the right thing over and over and over. I put in quotes there some of the kind of guiding principles that I personally have used for our real estate journey for the entire 10 years we've been investing. So I'll read them to you in case you're listening to this kind of more podcast style. And they're in quotes here. We look for high quality, solid Class B homes in stable, older neighborhoods with great schools. We look for assets that are cash flow positive with a high likelihood of appreciation or the ability to weather a storm. We're proud to own it on day one and excited to own it for the next 20 years. So when I got into real estate investing, I knew that I could never be a slumlord. That would never excite me. That would never make me proud of myself, of the work I was doing, of the way I was earning money. I knew I also didn't want to be just a ho-hum landlord. I wanted to be a property owner that provided benefit to the residents living in my property, that provided benefit to the community and provides benefit to the world as a whole. So these are the guiding criteria. I want to create great living experiences in great homes, in great neighborhoods, in great schools for people and families, and we love pets to live in, to enjoy, so that they can have the same standard of living as a homeowner in a rental home experience. And in doing so, that can create tremendous financial returns. So it's very much a win-win relationship. Some of the right things in terms of actions, they're actually quite simple. So I've listed some of them here. Things like putting the needs of others first. So I had the great fortune of doing my residency training at the Mayo Clinic, where the motto is the needs of the patient come first. And I love that I had that opportunity to train at such an amazing institution because it guides everything I do in real estate investing. So I think the needs of my resident come first, the needs of my staff come first, the needs of our investors come first. What can I be doing? What decision can I make to put the needs of others first? Answer the phone. Again, these right things don't have to be challenging, but there's so many people, particularly in real estate and in property management and in construction, because they're relatively young trades, that it's not the same level of professionalism that you might find in medicine or law or accounting. And so even something like answering the phone, returning an email, doing the things that you say you're going to do, that builds reputation, it builds character. Do the right thing doesn't have to be these kind of abstract principles. It's just things very simple, like being in communication with people when you say you're going to be. We have a very transparent revenue model that goes from our rental portfolio. We don't charge residents, obscure fees or, try to keep their security deposit when we're not entitled to it, as a lot of property managers do. It goes for our investors. We have a very transparent business model, and we believe that that's the right thing to do, and it makes people excited to do business with us. And so look for people that have that same business ethos, that do the right thing and be in relationship with those people. We focus a great deal on retention and referral. So we make sure we take excellent care of our residents so that they will hopefully renew their lease, live there for many years. That drives down vacancy, that drives down turnover costs. And so the bottom couple of things here on the slides are, well, what are the financial benefits that we enjoy from this principle of doing right things? And it's things like, despite a very large real estate portfolio over the past 10 years, we've never had to file for an eviction, even through COVID. We've almost never withhold security deposit. Even in a portfolio where more than 90% of our residents have pets, and there's this idea in real estate that pets will just destroy your property, we almost never have to withhold security deposit because we screen very well. We teach our tenants what we expect of them in living in that home. We demonstrate for them that we take excellent care of that property. We have very high maintenance standards, and we expect that behavior back in return. And so at the end, they often leave the property in same or better condition. And if there is a need for a security deposit withholding, it's usually a small amount. Again, do the right thing and it will likely come back. And then across our entire portfolio of all time, we have less than a 1% turnover vacancy. So we're able to keep people in our properties for years and years. We're able to lease the property while they're still living in it. They're actually excited to talk about how great it is to rent from our property management company and almost kind of do the sales process for us. Goes back to treating them right. They're excited. They love working with us, and they're excited to find the next family that will live in that home. Our next timeless principle is do right things. Grow fast. So this is probably my favorite. This is the one that makes me talk fast and get excited. This goes with our next principle of scale infinitely. So what you see here is I started in 2011 with that home that my husband and I rented out after I moved into the home that he lived in when we got married. This is the number of units that we acquired per year. We didn't acquire our second rental property until 2014. That was the second home I showed you the story about, the home that we renovated ourselves. It then took us over a year. So we got our next property in 2016. In 2017, we got 2 units. Then we started to gather some steam. In 2018, we got 7 units. In 2019, 14 units. We learned how to speed up the velocity of capital. That's a principle I'm going to teach you next because it's so critical. If I had to write you a ticket to financial freedom, it would be speed up the velocity of capital. In 2020, 47 units. Year to date in 2021, 165. And if everything I have under contract closes by the end of 2021, it will be a projected addition of 235 units this year. Again, I share this to be an example of what is possible. So I don't want you to be thinking, well, I don't have any real estate investments and maybe I'm too old or I'm too young or whatever limiting belief your brain is trying to tell you. You can see here a real life example of exponential growth and know that it's possible for you too. That principle of grow fast is such an important principle. This next picture I want to show you is my net worth over time. And really you can think of this as the value of real estate. My personal investment portfolio is 100% in real estate and cash. So 2011 is actually so far off the left of the screen that we can't see it. So you can imagine there's just this long line where it's relatively flat. And I think that's where people can get caught up in, I'll never have financial freedom, or I won't be able to retire until I'm 70, and maybe even really start to struggle with that. I have kids I'd like to put through college, or aging parents I would like to take care of. I don't know how to accelerate my financial growth. I just see this kind of flat line. And then you'll see there, 2014 to 2016, a little bit of growth. 2016 to 2018, the growth about doubled. If you remember back to the slide that I just shared, that was our unit count, was about doubling over those years. And then there's really exponential growth. And up here, the growth it's almost straight up. And when you talk to real estate investors, there's kind of 2 buckets. There's the people that kind of get trapped over here in this 2011, this kind of flat line and just give up. And I don't want you to be in that bucket. And then there's the people like myself, the people like who I hope you are, where you see that why and you're going toward it with crystal clarity. And those people have this exponential growth because as you get better at real estate, as you get better at investments, as your investments grow, if you funnel that back into more investments, you'll find that you hit that exponential growth. It's, much like a snowball or bacterial growth or, any of the thing of kind of natural law of life growth. And this is what I want for you. This is why I share it again, to be an example of what is possible. When I really started experiencing this exponential growth, that's when I was able to say things like, well, what do I really want my legacy to be? How do I really want to spend my time? Where do I really want to spend my efforts? What are my big charitable goals in life? I want all of that for you as well. That's why one of my timeless principles is grow fast. So how do you grow fast, right? You're asking yourself, well, how do I do that? I only have X numbers of dollars in the bank, and your brain is telling you lies of maybe that's not possible for me, or I don't know how I would do that. And so I'm going to teach you here how to do that. And these next two principles, I'm going to go a little bit slower. We're going to go through some numbers. I'm going to present this math in a way that's very easy to understand. Divorce yourself of any ideas that math is hard or that you're not smart enough. I promise you, you are. If you need to listen to it a second time, by all means, go back through. But know that this is really important because this is how we go from these abstract concepts of start small, scale infinitely, putting some math behind it and making it a real business plan so that you can do this in your life as well. All right, let's go through an example. So this is a real life example in my market here in Rochester, Minnesota. This is a deal that with probably about 10 days worth of time of looking at all of the properties that came onto the market, I could find this deal. So it's not just out there. It's not like I can just go buy 20 of these today. I have to hunt for it. Again, go back to that principle of do hard things. I'm not just buying the first thing that comes along. I'm spending time and effort looking for the best deal. But this also isn't a deal that's just impossible to find. That's, once a year sort of thing. This is a good, solid deal. This is going to be one of those good base hit deals. So in this example, we're purchasing a home for $250,000. We're renting the home for $2,000 per month. The debt that we're getting on this home is an 80% loan to value, 3.5% interest rate, and a 25-year amortization. So you might be asking yourself, well, isn't a conventional mortgage a 30-year term? Why is she putting in 25 years? And you're absolutely right. I put in 25 years here because you may know that an individual investor can get 10 conventional mortgages, a married couple can get 20. If I just told you to scale infinitely, I want to give an example of what a deal would look like after, say, an individual investor has 10 deals. So maybe they're on deal 15, or a married couple, they're on deal 25, because commercial lending does make the deal more challenging. And so I want to present to you that even with more challenging lending, this is absolutely possible. A down payment of $50,000, that leads to an overall annualized rate of return of 34% per year. In the next slide, we're going to go through slowly exactly how we come up with that number. A 7% cash on cash rate of return. And some of the assumptions that we put in are a 3.4% annual organic appreciation. So when we look at appreciation across 100 years in non-rural residential real estate in the United States, appreciation is about 3.4%. So we're not investing for appreciation, but we're definitely investing with appreciation in mind. Over the last many years, people who have invested in real estate have enjoyed almost double-digit or even over double-digit appreciation. So those folks are really able to speed up the velocity of their capital to get their equity out of properties and to keep going. But we want to pencil in a 3.4%, know that there are ups and downs in every market cycle, and that anything above that 3.4% is just icing on the cake. It just speeds up our goals. We also put in a 3% annual increase in rent, and then also in our expenses, insurance, taxes, and repairs. And in this example, we're not putting in any forced appreciation. So forced appreciation is when you buy a property that's not in a great state of repair and you do repairs to it. So like that example I shared in Start Small, we purchased that home for $35,000. We put $15,000 into it, so we had $50,000 spent on the property, and it appraised for a little under $100,000. So we had created about $40,000 in equity. That is called the BRRRR business model, or buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It allows you to, again, speed up the velocity of your capital. And in this example, I want to kind of turn the levers to make it kind of a harder example. So I'm saying no forced appreciation. In most deals that you look at, you should be looking for opportunities for forced appreciation. Let's go slowly on the numbers here next. So to orient you here, Across the top, we have date, period, annualized rate of return, cash on cash rate of return, cash flow, purchase price, rent. These lines right here are all of our expense buckets. So things like property insurance, taxes, management, maintenance, capital expenditure, and vacancy. And I just compressed those down so that everything could fit on one slide. And then all of these expenses that would be in here goes into this expense bucket. Net operating income is income, which is rent, minus expenses. So it's how much income are we creating if this property did not have a mortgage on it at all? Because one person might get, say, that 25-year mortgage because they're getting a commercial note. Another person might be able to get a 30-year mortgage because maybe it's their first conventional mortgage. And so we need to have a way to compare this property before mortgage is taken into consideration. I call NOI the great equalizer. Next, we have debt service, which is the mortgage payment. Debt pay down is the amount of the mortgage payment that goes to reducing the principal each month. Then we have our 3.4% appreciation. And then on the furthest right there, we have our cash flow, appreciation, and debt pay down. I did a 5-year analysis here. You could pause the video and really look at this carefully. Light green is the monthly period. The dark green is the annualized period. Then it goes for 5 years. We start with our purchase price of $250,000, our rental amount of $2,000. You'll see each year rent is going up a little bit. Expenses are also going up. Debt service doesn't go up because a mortgage is a fixed number because we're taking tax and property insurance and putting that into the expense bucket. So those are likely to go up over the years, but our debt service is a contractual obligation. Our debt pay down, on the other hand, does go up because as the principal balance of the mortgage goes down, more dollars of our mortgage payment goes to debt pay down. And then appreciation goes up because as the value of the home goes up, the denominator for appreciation goes up. So you'll see in the first year, this property generates a 7.3% cash on cash rate of return, which is our total annualized cash flow. In this example, that's about $3,600 per month, divided by the amount of capital we have in the project, which is $50,000. Our total annualized rate of return, which comes from cash flow, appreciation, and debt pay down, is this $17,000 number divided by $50,000. So that's about a 34% total annualized rate of return. And you'll see that each year the numbers get better. That's the beautiful thing about real estate, is that generally the numbers get better each year. If, let's say, a market crash comes, and we're going to talk in a little bit about why that's unlikely to happen over the next several years, but let's say that happens, then your annualized rate of return could go down because you may not enjoy appreciation, or you may even have the value of that property go down. Even during dips in the market cycle, it's very unlikely that rents go down. So it's likely that the cash flow would continue to increase on that property. So that's one of the ways that real estate has some protection built into it, even during fluctuations in the market cycle. You'll see by year 5 that this property is generating a 42% annualized rate of return. And it's not hard to imagine that if your money is getting a 42% rate of return, that you can scale very quickly. You can grow your wealth much more quickly than, say, 7 or 10% that you might be getting in the stock market, or worse, 1 or less percent that you might be getting in a CD or a bond. That's the power of real estate. There's so many buckets to wealth generation in real estate investing. One of the things that I don't talk about at all in this presentation is the tax benefits of real estate. So I have no doubt that there are many presenters in the conference today that are speaking about the tax advantages. I encourage you to listen to their presentations. This presentation is agnostic of that because everyone's tax situation is a little bit different, but know that it gets better from here when you factor in tax advantages as well. My next principle is never sell. So I personally have never sold any piece of real estate that I personally own. Of course, our real estate team is very skilled at both buying and selling of real estate, so we know how to do it, but we choose not to because we know that that is a major component of our growth and of scaling infinitely. And let's talk about why we've made that decision. So I joke here, the name of our company is Black Swan Real Estate, and I wrote here, this is Golden Goose Real Estate. When we came up with our logo for Single Family at Scale, we took the body of our swan and we turned it gold to remind ourselves that our real estate assets are basically golden geese. And I'm going to explain to you how that comes to be. So this is that same home that we just talked about. We're doing a year 5 analysis. So the value of that home at that point is $281,000. The debt on that home originally was a note of $200,000, and over the last 5 years, there's been $27,000 in debt pay down. So the bank is still owed $173,000 on the mortgage. Someone could choose to sell the home at that point. If someone sells a home, they generally net about 93% of purchase price after factoring in expenses like closing cost, make ready, minor maintenance that needs to happen, cleaning, landscaping, and then real estate commission. So that's where the 93% there is. So 93% of $281,000 is $261,000. That gives you $88,000 for proceeds, which comes from the $261,000 that you have, and then you need to pay off the bank of that $173,000. So you originally put $50,000 in, so you've created $38,000 in equity profit. You also have enjoyed $23,000 in cash flow over those 5 years. That gives you a total profit of $61,000. So you took your $50,000, you now have your $50,000 back, plus you have $61,000. You've more than doubled your money in 5 years. That is not bad. That is an excellent investment. Let's talk about the refinance option, which is that never sell. So at the end of year 5, you do an 80% cash out refinance. So you go to the bank and say, I have a home that's more valuable. I would like to get a new mortgage on it. $281,000 times 80% is $225,000 of refi proceeds. You put in $50,000, so you have $52,000 of net equity. Of course, you've paid off the original $173,000 on that original mortgage, so you have $52,000 of net equity plus your $23,000 of cash flow. So that means you've replenished your $50,000, and then you have $25,000 of leftover profit. Now, here's the thing. You still have the house. You now have a golden goose. So you can take that money, use it to purchase your next property. You still have this house that's generating cash flow, that's benefiting from debt pay down, that's benefiting from appreciation. In all of the cash out refis that I've done, because of rent growth, even with a larger mortgage payment, I don't get into cash flow negative deals because, again, rent growth. Some of the properties that I've owned over the last 10 years, I've actually done multiple cash out refis to tap into that equity. And a wonderful thing about refinance is it's a non-taxable event to the IRS. So for the sale option, you need to have some sort of plan for paying the taxes, even if it's something like a 1031 where you're purchasing the next property. In the refi option, you get all of those refi proceeds and the IRS doesn't care about it at all. This is the plan. If there's one slide in this whole presentation, this is the plan that I have used for the past 10 years. It's how I've grown my real estate portfolio so quickly and to such a large number. I absolutely recommend the timeless principle of never sell. The next principle is keep it simple. So I call this the Black Swan Way. These are the 3 real estate investing principles that have guided my journey, if I had to put it in just a couple of words. The first is whole circle investing. So in my first slide, I talked about how we are very vertically integrated. We have a real estate sales team, a property management team, a construction arm, and I encourage you to work with teams that are also very vertically integrated. Find a real estate agent who is also a property manager, or at minimum has a very close relationship with a property manager. So when that real estate agent tells you, this is how I predict this home will perform, they have some skin in the game there. They're held accountable for those predictions, as opposed to that real estate agent closes and then they're never seen again, and then you go to a property manager and they say that home's not going to rent for that amount, or that's not realistic. So the more vertical integration, we call that whole circle, the more alignment there is in your team, the better. race to refi. We just talked about how that's such a powerful concept. That's called the velocity of capital, which means how quickly can you get your money back. In this market today, people can get their money back in as little as 18 months or 2 years. I encourage people to think about like a 4-year hold period. If someone wants to grow a little bit more slowly, maybe they're constrained on capital, a path that I recommend for them is to buy one house per year for 4 years to funnel all of the cash flow back into buying more real estate. And then in year 5, do a cash out refi of house number 1. Then that person still has house number 1. And then house number 1 just purchases house number 5. And then in year 6, house number 2 gets refinanced and that money gets used to purchase house number 6. And then you're in this really beautiful place where your houses are buying other houses for you. And then you can scale a lot more quickly. And then values added real estate. So doing everything with the utmost integrity, with the utmost care, taking the professionalism that comes from my career in medicine and my husband's career in technology and saying, we're going to apply that to our real estate investing and practice with that level of professionalism. And that has provided us with not only a great deal of enjoyment because we feel like we're really leaving the world a better place, but it also has led to very real financial income. So values added real estate is one of the 3 principles of the Black Swan Way. Our next principle is never stop. So I love real estate. I love real estate investing. I never want to stop investing. I hope that that's true for you. I hope as you experience financial freedom, you just keep moving the goalposts. You keep getting more excited about what more can you do? What more of a legacy can you have? Is there a huge charitable aim that you can have? You know, what can you do to continue to grow? As you get better, real estate investing gets easier. So even though you have more properties and more to do, you're better able to handle it. Your teams are better able to handle it. I love the book, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. So an infinite game is a game that never ends. A finite game is like a game of basketball. 2 teams come together. They say we're going to play for this many number of minutes. Whoever scores the most at the end of those number of minutes wins. You shake hands, you go on, you've enjoyed the game. The infinite game is the game that never stops. It's saying things like, I want to leave a legacy for my children. I want to learn how to be a very skilled real estate investor so that I can teach my children these skills so that they can have some passive income, at much earlier stages of life than I was able to. One of my timeless principles is never stop. I want to talk about work-life balance, and I want to talk about the idea of how do you do it all. So maybe you're thinking, I'm already working as a physician or a healthcare professional or a dentist or some other busy professional. I have these other interests. I want to be spending time with my children. That's certainly a question that I have had many, many times over my career. And I want to present to you, the idea of be thinking now about what life will look like for you when you reach financial freedom. If you're learning from this presentation and other presentations in this conference this weekend, your path to financial freedom could be quite quick. What will that look like for you? So I think most people think of, maybe spending time on the beach or traveling. And yes, humans want to do that. We want to leisure. We want to recreate. You also want to be thinking about your why. What is important to you? What is exciting to you? How will you spend your time after you've reached financial freedom? Maybe it's more time with yourself, more time with your children. Maybe it's continuing to work in medicine or your career, but doing so with a sense of lightness, with a sense of that you own your own time. One of the very first things we talked about is find your why. We're talking about it again here at the end because I think particularly real estate investors, we're creating so much freedom for ourselves and for our loved ones, and we need to make sure that we know what we're going to do with ourselves when we find that freedom. Here's an example of a day in my life. So I spend the vast majority of my time running my real estate company now, and this is an example. This was several months ago, kind of at the heat of COVID. My husband and I were about 2 hours away. I needed to do some Zoom calls, and we couldn't find a library or a coffee shop or anything that was open, so we actually rented a hotel room just for the afternoon so we could have Wi-Fi. I participated in 3 masterminds that day, so meeting with business women, meeting with real estate investors, meeting with people who inspire me, who encourage me to do better. I worked on managing my team via Slack, email, phone, just staying in communication with them. I worked on a presentation. Ironically, the presentation that day was about finding your why after financial freedom. I met with our attorney to work on joint venture paperwork. We then went on to acquire assets with that joint venture partnership. So again, building that pipeline, working on things that have legacy. We then took family photos. That was a great time. It's really important to me that I document our children's childhood. It's also a business expense because we use a lot of those photos on our website and those sorts of things. And then I did calls with investors. So after I found financial freedom, the thing that really struck a chord for me was helping as many other people as I could find that same freedom. So I spent a great deal of my time having one-on-one phone calls, doing coaching calls, those sorts of things with fellow investors, and that fills me with a great sense of joy, a great sense of purpose. So you need to be thinking about what is going to bring you joy and purpose so that as you experience these freedoms, you're able to be an authentic version of yourself, to do the things that you want to do, to find your passion projects and lean into them. Let's talk about one of the last principles. I think it's one of the most important, and that is think big. So I've shown you how I've built a large real estate portfolio with large financial benefits, but really it's so that I can have freedom, so that I can do large things with my life. And that's what I want for you. Steve Jobs says, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. That's what I believe. That's why I help as many people as I can find financial freedom. The more of us that have this, the more of us that can work on the things that fire us up, that get us excited, that the things that we can do to improve our families, our communities, the world, the better it is for everyone. Real estate is just a vehicle to allow us to think big. It's also an opportunity to practice things like communication and deal making and weathering these bumps and bruises. Think big. I leave that principle here at the end because how important it is. I believe in you. I know that you are capable of doing amazing things, and I want you to have this encouragement, this excitement, and know that real estate investing can set you on that journey. One of the ways that I give back is through Single Family at Scale. So this is an online course that I have put together. It's over 100 lessons. In this presentation, I talked about timeless principles. Single Family at Scale is kind of the opposite. It's more of the nitty-gritty, the details, the blueprint. It's the recipe instead of just what's on the menu. Over 100 lessons, interviews, worksheets, calculators, everything that you need to start small, scale infinitely. It applies to both single-family homes and scaling your portfolio into things like large multifamily, syndications, funds, commercial, those sorts of things. A way that I could give back is I created this course with a really revolutionary payment model. So it's a pay what you can model. We suggest a donation of $1,500, but a minimum of $100 will get you into the course. I encourage you to give generously, and 100% of revenue goes to charity. So our charitable initiatives are creating housing opportunities for women and children, building public parks, and providing entrepreneurial education to young people, giving this course away so that people can benefit from the power of real estate investing, and doing so in a way that drives my charitable aims is really like one of the greatest joys, one of the funnest things I've done during my real estate journey. I encourage you to take a look at Single Family at Scale, to enroll in the course, to share this widely. I also want to make sure you know how to contact me. So again, I'm Dr. Elaine Stoggeberg, owner of Black Swan Real Estate and Single Family at Scale. You can find out all about how to reach me at meetblackswan.com. There's links to things like our newsletter, our Facebook group, our calendar, monthly free coaching calls. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to build a relationship with you. I want to end by thanking you for spending your time with me. I value your time. I honor your time. I hope this has filled you with a sense of excitement, with a sense of encouragement, with a bedrock of timeless principles that you can use to start now, scale infinitely, go out, conquer. Thank you.